Okay, Genesis chapter 25. Do you know there's 50 chapters in the book of Genesis? So by the time we're done today, we'll be over half over with the book of Genesis. And it has been a fun, wild ride, hasn't it? As we're starting, it's going way into detail with Abraham and way into detail with Noah. But now it's just going to go really fast through these guys, which are really important, which would be Isaac and Esau. Isaac and Jacob, Esau and Jacob. But then when we get later, it goes a long time in detail with a guy named Joseph. And Joseph would be who? Well, he would be a type of Christ more than anybody else in the entire book. That's 140 something. Do you remember the number? I forget. 140 something times he's a type of Christ. And yet he's not even the line that Jesus came from. Jesus comes from Judah, not from Joseph. But this book is given us by the Lord. And it's not just past history, although it is. It's future history, it's prophecy, but it's also like a circle. And what we're going to read today is the same thing that's happening in the same place over there today with the same people. So it's like this book is being played out over and over again all throughout history. It's the world's oldest soap opera, is what it is. But it's just incredible. You cannot deny that the seed of these people we're talking about are over there fighting over the same land at the same time. Same place, same people. It's incredible. And you think they'd all get along because they all come from the same guy. But they don't. It's just so sad. It's so sad. So last time we saw Sarah passing and her burial. We also saw the marriage of Isaac with Rebekah. Today we're going to see more of Abraham, just a little bit until we see his passing. And then we're going to see more of Isaac. But did you know that Abraham got married again? This is what's incredible. Abraham married Sarah and lived with her all those years and only got one child. But he married Hagar and only got one child. But then after Sarah dies, he marries Keturah, and boy, he was busy. Look at that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 kids. And he's over 100. Imagine having 6 kids when you're over 100. Imagine you go to your daddy and you're like, that's my daddy. He looks like my great-great-great-grandpa, because it'd be weird. It'd be really weird. But that's who these are. And this is his wife, Keturah. So all these, but there's only one specific line that God gave the promise through. And we're going to see that. But what's weird is there's 12 tribes of Israel. We're going to see today there's also 12 tribes of Ishmael. Isn't that strange? So we see this thing, it is genealogy, it is history. And no doubt in my mind, if you spend more time out in the desert there digging, you'll probably find the names of these people somewhere. Because every day they're out there doing archaeology and they're finding more and more things that match up with the Bible. So I just can't stand people that say, you can't believe the Bible, that's just a book written by man and it's just like historical fact is what the Bible is. It should be a textbook in every college around the world. And at one time it was. And unfortunately, people are just denying the Bible. They outlaw the Bible in certain places. In Canada, they put a man in jail just for saying John 3:16. Why do they hate this book? Because this book tells you the truth. And it tells you who Jesus is. And he is God manifest in the flesh. And so you need to know these things. So I'm so glad we're studying this. So we're going to start in chapter 25, and then we're going to do 25 and 26, and by the time we get done today, we'll be halfway through the book of Genesis. Can you imagine how many hours have we gone? Well over 25 hours, because some of these were over an hour long. But we are learning so much. So Genesis chapter 25, then again Abraham took a wife, and her name was Keturah. So this is Keturah. So that's Abraham's third wife, I guess. So he had Sarah as his legitimate wife. Then he had these, and I don't know, would we call them illegitimate wives? I don't know. They were concubines, and we'll see that in verse 6, and I'll define what the word concubine is. So it almost sounds like these were illegitimate children, which, how does that sound? He's a great hero of the faith, and yet he had mistresses, So maybe they were real wives, but if they were his real wives, the definition is really weird of what a concubine is. Why didn't he just say wife? Because there's something else going on here. So we're going to see that. So Genesis 25, then again, Abraham took a wife, and her name was Keturah. And I forgot to look up what Keturah means. If you got a phone or something, you guys could look up what is the definition of Keturah. Because I got all these other names, and I forgot that one. And she bare him Zimran and Jokshan and Medan and Midian and Ishbak and Shua. And so these are the names of those kids from her. So he had more children with his last wife than he did with his other two. What do their names mean? Zimran means one who prunes or one who makes music. So in my mind, that he's out there cutting down wood, probably making little recorders or something out of it. I don't know. Maybe he likes wood instruments or something. I don't know. It's interesting how they have names. And again, as we define every name, it almost paints a picture. Jokshan means one who sets a snare, a fowler, or a sportsman. So it sounds like he's a guy that likes to go hunting. He's out there setting traps and things like that. Medan means strife or judgment, and Midian means strife or judgment. So these guys have a very similar name. I wonder if they weren't twins, because we see another place in the Bible where it's a play on words that the names sound similar or maybe are exact opposite, backwards. So I wonder if these two might have been twins. That's weird that their names are so close together. Ishbak means leaving, or he will forsake, or he will abandon. Well, wouldn't you hate to have that your name? Hey, there's the guy that always forsakes everybody and always goes out. Maybe he's always spending time alone, comes back a couple weeks. Oh, I was out camping or something. I honestly don't know. We name kids when they're born. Did you know in those days they would name children a couple years later sometimes? Just because they looked to see what his characteristics were, and then they name them that. So this is the name Keturah. Keturah means incense, indiscriminative distribution of society's surplus. What a weird name. But it means incense. So I bet she smelled really good. Maybe that's why he couldn't stand to not marry her, because she smelled so good. So that's what Keturah means. Isn't that interesting? Then we have the last one here, Shua. Shua means brought low or prostration. What would you think of him? Maybe he was praying a lot. Maybe he's getting down on his knees to pray or something. Maybe he was the more religious of them. I don't know. It's just names have meanings, and it's interesting to look at the names. So these are Keturah's children. Now verse 3, it tells you what some of the children's children were. And Jokshan begat Sheba and Dedan, and the sons of Dedan were Ashurim and Letushim and Leumim. Now when you see I-M on the end, that's plural. So these children had a lot of children from them, is what it's saying. And the sons of Midian, Ephah and Epher, and Hanok and Abida and Eldah, and these were the children of Keturah. Okay, so let's look at their names. The sons of Jokshan, Sheba and Dedan. Sheba means seven or oath, and Dedan means leading gently. That's an interesting name, he who leads gently. The sons of Dedan were Ashurim, which means happy people or upright people, or people that walk up steps. That's interesting. Letushim means metal workers or hammerers. And Leumim means just people, just peoples. Now the sons of Midian, verse 4, are Ephah, which means gloom or covering or dark one. Maybe he got too much of a suntan or something. I don't know. Epher means young deer, young hart, dust, or ore, O-R-E. Hanok means trained or inaugurated or dedicated. Maybe he was dedicated to the Lord. I don't know. Abida, father of knowledge, or the father knows, or my father took knowledge. And Eldah, which means God has called, or God is knowledge, or God is good. So they all have their names. What does that mean? We don't know. I just throw that out there. But probably, historically, by their names, you could, let's say you go over there and you dig something up and it says Letushim. Wouldn't it be something if there was a hammer right next to it? And you'd be like, oh, this is the people that were the hammerers. That's why their name is the hammer. So it's good to know what these words mean and things like that. Genesis 25, now verse 5. And Abraham gave all that he had unto Isaac. So isn't that a slap in the face? Here he is. He gets all these other kids, man. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 children running around. The 7th one's Isaac. Of course, the 8th one is Ishmael, but yet he was the first one. He didn't get anything. They didn't get anything. He got it all. I mean, every bit of it. How would you feel if you were the other guys? Well, that's not it. He didn't just not give them anything. Watch what happens. Well, he did give some gifts, but he gave all of his estate, everything he gave to Abraham, while he gave some gifts to the others. And then he literally said, now get out of here. Don't even be with my son. You guys go away. Now, what is going on here? Would you do that to your kids? Well, it looks like she might have been what Hagar was, a servant. So it looks like he kind of probably looked down on her a little bit and probably looked down on his children. Now, that's horrible. That shouldn't be. But that's what it kind of looks like. Because, look at verse 6. But unto the sons of the concubines, now that's plural. Did he have more than Keturah? Did he maybe have some others too? I don't know. But unto the sons of the concubines which Abraham had, Abraham gave gifts and sent them away from Isaac his son while he yet lived, eastward into the east country. These people became the Arabs, the Arab people, which were nomads for many years. What does concubine mean? I looked up concubine in the 1828 dictionary. A woman who cohabitates with a man without the authority of a legal marriage. Uh-oh, that would be like a mistress. That would be wrong, right? I guess the Bible says like this, in times past, God winked at certain things. So God allowed Abraham to do that. A wink, wink, even though I wouldn't allow that under the law, I'll let him get away with it. Isn't that weird? I don't like that. But then the second definition, here's the first definition. A woman who cohabits with a man without the authority of a legal marriage, a woman kept for lewd purposes, a kept mistress. All right? We're reading the Bible here. Does that sound like Abraham? The second definition is a wife of inferior condition, a lawful wife, but not united to the man by the usual ceremonies, and of inferior condition. And I'm like, what? That sounds horrible. Well, you remember 1828 is before the uncivil war, we'll call it. So they used to have slavery back then. And it's an unfortunate, horrible thing. They used to look down on certain people, especially if they were their servants. So as we look at this, it kind of makes us think that Abraham kind of looked down on, and we could probably say that she was his wife lawfully, but how sad that he kind of looked down on them. Isn't that sad? That kind of made me go, oh man. So such were Hagar, it even says in the dictionary, such were Hagar and Keturah, the concubines of Abraham, and such concubines were allowed by the Roman laws. So when you go back to the 1828 dictionary, even in Rome, they allowed you to have your lawful, legitimate wife and then to take a slave wife. And she didn't get what the lawful wife got. Aren't you glad we don't have laws like that today? That would be, wow. Is there a custom today that allows you to have more than one wife? And kind of put your wife down like she's a slave? Well, you go over to the Middle East where the Arabs are and you'll see stuff like that. Isn't that weird how that still is around today? Weird. Anyway, weird. So back to verse 6. But unto the sons of the concubines. Well, I don't want to think that Abraham was bad. I don't want to think that he had mistresses. So I will think of it as the definition that it was his wife. But if that's the case, he looked at her as an inferior wife. That's really sad, isn't it? He kind of looked down. Maybe that's why he sent them away, because he felt like, oh, you're my slave wife or something like that. You're my servant wife. I'm just showing what the Bible said. It was a different time, different place. Thank God it's not like that today. So he gave them gifts. He sent them away while his son was still alive. So he did not want them to fight with Isaac. And you got to think what he's thinking in his mind is, this is my child that I love the most from my favorite wife, and he gets everything. And it's not just because I like the kid. It's because my God told me my seed is coming from him. So he sent them away because he's afraid if they were too close that they might kill him, or they might try to take and mess up God's plan. Well, where's your faith? I mean, if God said it's going to happen, it's going to happen. He would have been safe in God's hands. But a lot of times we do it ourselves, don't we? Or we try to. So it's kind of a shameful thing, but it's what happened. And he sent them all to the east. What would be to the east? Well, down toward the east. It tells us a little bit later where all that was. And it's going down toward where modern Iraq and Iran is, and then farther down toward Saudi Arabia and over in Yemen and places like that, where guess who is? The Arabs. Today, that's where the Arab people come from. Did you know the Arabs were sons of Abraham? A lot of them are. That's why today they talk about the Abraham Accords, and they want everybody, the Islam and Arabs and the Jews, to come together because they're all the sons of the same guy. And yet, they're not wanting to. Well, they claim to want to. So, we're seeing this almost, this would probably be around 1800 BC, okay? Or even 1900 BC, somewhere around there. And then it says in verse 7, and these are the days of the years of Abraham's life, which he lived, 160 years. So a score is 20, so that'd be 60, 75. So Abraham dies at 175 years old. What an amazing time to live. That's a long time. We don't have people living that long. What's the longest somebody's lived lately? I think I went back and looked, and if you look back the past 200 years, somebody got to like 130 something. So it's not far-fetched that in a better world with less poison everywhere, that a guy could live to be 175. And look what it says there, and he gave up the ghost, verse 8. Then Abraham gave up the ghost and died in a good old age, an old man and full of years, and was gathered to his people. What does it mean to give up the ghost? Well, it means his soul and spirit departed from his body. Let's go to Genesis 35:18. When you die, your body stays here in this world. Your soul leaves with your spirit, and you go to the next world. And today, if you're saved, you go to heaven. If you're not, you go down to the place of fire. Genesis 35:18. Genesis 35:18 says this, and it came to pass as her soul was departing, for she died, that she called his name Benoni, but his father called him Benjamin. So when you die, your soul leaves your body. That's what the Bible teaches. So when we go to a funeral, all we see is the body, but the soul left and went either up or down. And that's what the Bible teaches. So when he gave up the ghost, what is the ghost? The ghost is like a spirit. And so it's your soul and spirit leaving your body. And in those days, it would have gone to Abraham's bosom, not to hell. So he would have gone to Abraham's bosom. So back to verse 8, he's gathered to his people. So he's probably buried right next to who? His wife, Sarah. And that's what the next verse says. Verse 9, and his sons Isaac and Ishmael buried him in the cave of Machpelah in the field of Ephron, the son of Zohar the Hittite, which is before Mamre. So we saw this last week. He bought it from these people. And I got to go there and see where the big building is built over. And you get to go inside, and they say the cave is down there. And guess what? I don't think his body is there, because it would have risen again when Jesus rose from the grave. But you could still go and see that to this day. Now verse 10, the field which Abraham purchased of the sons of Heth, there was Abraham buried, and Sarah his wife. All right, so he gets to be buried next to his wife. Verse 11, and it came to pass after the death of Abraham that God blessed his son Isaac, and Isaac dwelt by the well Lahairoi. Okay, so he is buried, and then his son, who has everything, goes and he goes to this well. And we saw this well. The well means the living one who sees me. Now, the Bible says, now let's go away from him for a minute and let's look at Ishmael. And before we go back to him, let's look at what happened to Ishmael. So you see how if this was a movie, it would pan out showing him at the well, and then it would pan in over here and start showing you Ishmael, and then tell you that story, and then it would pan back over. And it's just think about it like you're watching a movie sometimes. So verse 11, it came to pass after the death of Abraham that God blessed his son Isaac, and Isaac dwelt by the well Lahairoi. Now these are the generations of Ishmael, Abraham's son, who Hagar the Egyptian, Sarah's handmaid, bare unto Abraham. And these are the names of the sons of Ishmael, by their names according to their generations. The firstborn of Ishmael, Nebajoth, and Kedar, and Abdeel, and Mibsam, and Mishma, and Duma, and Massa. Hadar, and Tema, Jetur, Naphish, and Kedama. These are the sons of Ishmael, and these are their names by their towns and by their castles, 12 princes according to their nations. All right, so we have 12 princes, or 12 tribes, coming from the one man. Over here, we find out later Jacob had 12 kids and 12 tribes from him. So isn't that weird that that happens first from this side? Now, modern-day Muslims claim that they're the 12 tribes that the promise of Abraham went to. But we have the book that says, no, it went to this one over here, and it's through these 12. So do you see how we have over here, it's like they're trying to set themselves up to get it first? If you're a Muslim, you're supposed to believe in all the prophets. So why wouldn't you believe in the prophet Moses, who wrote this down from God, who said, no, all the promises go to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, not to Ishmael. So it's that 12 princes, not this 12. But we get the names of these 12. Isn't that amazing that they're remembered? And their names have meanings, okay? Nebajoth means high places, or seen, or having prophesied, or visions. Kedar means dark, or to be dark, or turbid, or dark-skinned. Abdel means servant of God. Mibsam, from a sweet smell, or perfumery, or sweet smell, or delightful. Mishma means hearing, or obedience, or rumor, or a thing heard. Duma means silence. That's an interesting one. Massa, and you got to wonder, could it be maybe he had a speech impediment and couldn't talk or something? I mean, their names have meanings. And like I said, they would often name them years later. So maybe this kid grew up and could never speak, and that's why his name is that. I'm just spitballing here, but they do have reasons for their names meaning something. Massa means load, or oracle, or burden, or bearing patiently. Hadar means ornament, or honor, or inner chamber, or a chamberlain. Tema means south country, or sunburnt, or desert. Jetur means defense, or he will border. Naphish means revival, or expansion, or refreshment, or increase. And Kedema means former, or eastward, or toward the east. So these are the names and what they mean of the 12 tribes of Ishmael. What we find out later is that Esau marries in to the line of Ishmael. And when he does, Isaac and Rebekah are very sad. They did not want their children to mix with these people. Why? What was going on over here? They're all family. Well, you wonder, did they get false gods? Because they went to the heathen and they started going in their land. So you got to wonder, maybe they have a false god. Maybe that's why they didn't want them to intermingle with them. But we will see it where Esau, out of spite, goes and marries somebody from over here just to spite his parents. Isn't that interesting? And the only thing I can figure is because they have a false god, it was a shame to them. You know? So back to Genesis chapter 25. And it says, verse 16, these are the sons of Ishmael, and these are their names, by their towns and by their castles, 12 princes according to their nations. So they would go out. So if you were a prince and you were a head, you would probably marry, unfortunately, concubines. You'd probably have a bunch of wives, so you'd have a bunch of kids. Before you know it, you'd have your own tribe. And then you'd probably get servants, and then you'd probably say, hey, let's build us a little town here. And build yourself a castle. But you're the guy that's the start of your nation. Or start of each one of these would be their own separate nation. That's what a prince is. He's almost a king. So imagine what it would have been like to go back in those times, I don't know, a couple hundred years after Isaac, and just go visit each one and just see what town they built. Wouldn't that be so neat? And just say, oh, this is, let me guess. Is this where Massa built? Oh, yeah, this is Massa's town. Hey, where's old Kedar's town? Oh, that's about 4 miles down the road. Oh, okay, I'm going to go visit it, you know. Or maybe you were one of the people, you're like, oh, I'm from Tema. And you go visit Kedar. And they're like, which one are you? Oh, I'm from Tema. Oh, yeah, he was my great-great-grandfather. Oh, well, we're related. We're third cousins. I mean, that's how this thing played out. But the longer they stayed there, the more they forgot of people over here. And the more tribalism it becomes. Now, that's the enemy over there. And it doesn't matter that they're all family. Now, I got to protect my tribe. I'll go attack this tribe. And do you see how it all became tribalism? It's kind of sad. It's kind of sad. But that's how man is. Man likes to fight and likes to war. So, it says, verse 17, and these are the years of the life of Ishmael. 100. Something happened. See, they're fighting over there. Look at those. Something. And these are the years of the life of Ishmael, 137 years, and he gave up the ghost and died and was gathered unto his people. So Ishmael, who is the head of all these, imagine having 12 kids come to your funeral. And he died at that old age, and who knows where he was buried. I bet you somewhere over there, if you could dig it up, you could probably find where he was buried. And you know, I wonder if he wasn't kind of like in the middle and they built all around in a circle or something, so it's easier to go visit their daddy or whatever. I don't know. You just got to wonder about all those things, but I can only imagine how tight-knit of a community they all would have been because they were all family. And they're all from Abraham. And yet, Abraham kind of sent them away. Remember? Isn't that crazy? So did they have anything to do with Abraham? Do you think they felt resentment a little bit toward Isaac because your daddy's the one that sent us away? Or do you think they felt, hey, we're family? You got to wonder how those, I think they probably felt a little resentment, to be honest with you, because their daddy sent them away. Because he looked down on their mother, if you believe the definition in the dictionary that of inferior wife. Isn't that weird? We're living in way better times today that we don't have to live in times like that. I feel sorry for the ladies back then, what they went through. So then it says, he was gathering unto his people. Verse 18, and they dwelt from Havilah unto Shur, that is before Egypt, as thou goest toward Assyria. And he died in the presence of all his brethren. Now, I didn't put a map up here, but if you look at the map, and you look where modern-day Israel and Jordan is, and you go toward the east, you're going to go toward that way, and you go south like you're going down to Egypt. You're going to Iran, you're going to Iraq, you're going down to Saudi Arabia. You're ultimately going to end up down there in the UAE and Yemen and all those places. Modern-day Arabs. So the Arabs are from Ishmael, not from Isaac. But they all come from Abraham. But the promise from God to Abraham was Isaac and Jacob and the 12 tribes. So a different 12 princes, a different 12 tribes. Okay, so then it says in verse 19, and these are the generations of Isaac. So the camera pans away from Ishmael. And now we're going to pan back in over here and look at Isaac. So here we go to Isaac. And these are the generations of Isaac, Abraham's son. Abraham beget Isaac. Well, that was easy. Then what? And Isaac was 40 years old when he took Rebekah to wife, the daughter of Bethuel, the Syrian of Padan Aram, the sister to Laban the Syrian. Now, it's very interesting why it says the Syrian. Isaac was 40 years old when he married Rebekah. He had to trust his daddy. And I bet every day when he was 18 years old, he'd go to his daddy, can I get married yet? No. Until one day his dad goes, all right, he's 40. Send him over there and find somebody. So that's a long time to wait to get married, isn't it? He's 40 years old, and Laban the Syrian is the brother of Rebekah. Why the Syrian? In the Bible, the Syrian is also called an Assyrian. It's found 13 times in the King James Bible, the Assyrian. And did you know that the Antichrist might be an Assyrian? Because we see this thing over and over. When it's Assyrian or an Assyrian, there's always 7 years connected with it. Do you remember when we saw the well over there? And it was the well of 7. And we looked at that, wow, maybe that's like a 7-year thing. Well, what happens to Jacob when he goes to get married? He meets Laban, and he makes a deal with the Syrian for 7 years. And he gets the wrong one. So he has to do another 7 years. So we just keep coming back to this 7-year thing. I believe in a 7-year future tribulation. I can't believe people would change on what they used to preach, because I was taught this is all a type of the future 7 years after the rapture. But we have people changing stuff like that. Well, are you going to change the Bible too? I hope not. But we have people changing. So he's a type, the Syrian would be a type of the Antichrist. So now look what happens. We're going to see a lot of things like the son, so is the father. The father's like the son's like the father. Isaac is like his father in a lot of ways, we're about to find out. And watch what happens next. It says here, and Isaac, verse 21, entreated the Lord for his wife because she was barren, and the Lord was entreated of him, and Rebekah his wife conceived. So Abraham's married Sarah. She's beautiful. He's happy. They can't have a kid. And they're like, oh, I can't. So he's going through the same thing his daddy went through. She can't have kids. Oh. And so he has to pray and beg God, and God finally says, all right. Now, do you know, he knew the blessing to Abraham that he was going to have. So he knew eventually, but boy, that must have been agonizing. All he wanted was a kid. I mean, this guy over here had 12, you know. So finally, he got a kid, but yet he got more than he bargained for. He got twins. Isn't that interesting? So I guess that's good. He must have prayed, or maybe he overprayed and got twice instead of one or something. I don't know. He must have prayed hard. But because he prayed and asked the Lord let them have a child. So verse 21, the Lord was entreated of him, and Rebekah his wife conceived. And the children, see that? Twins. And the children struggled together within her. And she said, if it be so, why am I thus? And she went in to inquire of the Lord. So now she's pregnant. The Lord's answered their prayer, but she can't figure it out. Feels like there's a battle going on inside of her. they're in there going, you, no, you, and they're fighting each other, probably, you know, that kind of stuff, the Two Stooges. But we find out they not only fought each other in the belly, they fought each other when they got out. Now, this is I would call this a miraculous birth. Whenever I put Isaac, he was a miraculous birth from Sarah because Sarah was barren. And she had that boy at 90 years old. There's 7 miraculous births in the Bible. Well, here we have Rebecca, and she can't have kids. And they pray and ask God, and then boom, out pops Jacob and Esau. So they're an answer to prayer. So it's a miraculous birth. God did something. God intervened, answered a prayer. Then Joseph wants a kid by Rachel, which is his favorite wife. But he gets a lot of kids from Leah, and then he has concubines too. But finally, he has a child, Joseph, by Rachel, when she couldn't have kids. And then eventually, didn't she have Benjamin too? And then she died because she gave birth to Benjamin dying. So that's a miraculous birth. Then we have Manoah's wife. Remember her? And she would go and she'd pray and ask God for a son. And then it was a miraculous thing that God gave Samson to her. And Samson is in the Bible. Then we have Elizabeth, and John the Baptist came from her. And then we have Mary, and boy, what a miracle that is, because she never knew a man, and then Jesus was born. So the Holy Spirit implanted in her the seed. And then after that, she had more children, but she was a virgin when she had Jesus. Now, some people think the woman of Shunem was another miraculous birth and her son, and that's a good story in, I guess, Kings or someplace, I forget, but it never gives us the name of that son. So I want to stick with the ones that are named, right? And so if you look at it like that, there's 7 times in the Bible when you have a miraculous birth and then God ends up using that child. And so that shows you that God is intervening in this world sometimes to do certain things. And it's all according to His plan. So how much of it is our plan and how much of it is His plan is the question. So she gets pregnant and she has 2 kids. And then she goes in verse 22, and she said, if it be so, why am I thus? And she went to inquire of the Lord. And the Lord said unto her, so the Lord talks to her, 2 nations are in thy womb, and 2 manner of people shall be separated. 2 nations are in thy womb, and 2 manner of people shall be separated from thy bowels. And the one people shall be stronger than the other people, and the elder shall serve the younger. Now she goes to God, and God tells her what's going to happen in the future. So God prophesies. He knows what's going to happen before it happens. And He says one people will be stronger than the other people, and the younger is going to rule over the elder. So the elder shall serve the younger. So we got to pay careful attention. Well, who's the older? Well, the older is the one that pops out first. So whoever comes out first is the oldest, even though they're twins. Well, what an amazing story, because the one that comes out first, the other one's holding his leg, like, no! He's pulling him back in. No, me first. It's almost like, it's a funny story. It's like, no, so he's holding on to his heels. So let's read that and read this. But this says 2 nations. So what would be the 2 nations? Well, we have the nation of Israel coming from that. But then this is Esau, who mixes over here with these. So this would be more of the Arab nations. Okay? So you've got the Jewish nations and the Arab nations, which is exactly what we have in the Middle East today. Israel is a nation again after almost 2,000 years. 1948, they declared themselves a nation, and or the UN did. And then you have the Arab nations that are all around there. So it says here, and when her days, verse 24, to be delivered were fulfilled, behold, there were twins in her womb. And the first came out red all over like an hairy garment, and they called his name Esau. And what does Esau mean? Esau means doer, maker, worker, or hairy. So isn't that funny? He's very hairy. Now look at the next verse. And after that came his brother out, and his hand took hold on Esau's heel, and his name was called Jacob, and Isaac was 80 years old when she bare him. So that's 60 years old. So they went 20 years without having a baby. And I bet that was agonizing. They really wanted to have a child. But Jacob comes out, he's the younger, and he's holding the heel, going, oh, was that pulling himself out? Almost, because he's holding that one. How much of it was him coming out naturally, and how much it was because he was holding, he came out at the same time? I don't know, and that's kind of weird. What does Jacob mean? Jacob means he who closely follows. It can also mean supplanter. It can also mean deceiver. And it also means he who hides his intentions or he who manipulates. So we find out that Jacob wasn't exactly the nicest guy. He was always scheming to try to get something, which is kind of the opposite of Esau. Esau was a lucky, what do you call him? Just a happy-go-lucky type of person that just enjoyed life, didn't really care about anything. And the fact is, he didn't care enough. And that's why in the Bible, he's the only guy that God says he hated. Because Esau didn't care enough about the things of God. He cared more about the things of the world. And Jacob cared too much about the things of the world. So you see, they're complete opposites. They're almost complete opposites. Now, what's this deal about grabbing his heel? Why would they write that in the Bible? Well, if you go back to Genesis chapter 3 and verse 15, your mindset is back here. You don't know who the Messiah is. You don't know who the Christ is. You don't know who the promised seed is. So all you remember is that the prophecy of the promised seed is a head and a heel. So Genesis 3:15, and I will put enmity between thee and the woman, and between thy seed and her seed. It shall bruise thy head, and thou shalt bruise his heel. So they looked at that, and they knew their Bible, and they're like, he grabbed the heel of that guy coming out. I wonder if from him the seed of the Christ might come from that old prophecy we had about the head and the heel. So do you see how that was a big deal for them? Didn't really mean much for us, except now we're looking back, and we know that the Christ did not come from Esau. It came from Jacob. So it's just those little details that are so fun to read as you read through the Bible. So we see these two guys being born. Isaac was 60 years old when he had twins. Man, well, at least that's better than his dad, who's 100, that has a child. Now, here we see the story, and here we find how Esau was not exactly a great person, because he had a birthright. He was the oldest. He should have gotten what? Everything. He got everything. They didn't. So he was older than these guys. Well, this guy was sent away, so he already got what he got when he was sent away. But whoever's the oldest gets everything. So Esau should have got it, and Esau should have been like, yeah, this is great. He did not care about anything. So he was very carefree, but it's almost like he didn't care about his family. And the more I read this, it almost feels like to me he's a rebel that didn't even love his family. Just a rebellious person. And we'll see that in the way that he spites his parents by going and marrying somebody that they didn't want him to marry. So Esau's not a good dude, all right? Verse 27, and the boys grew, and Esau was a cunning hunter, a man of the field, and Jacob was a plain man dwelling in tents. So it's cool. Esau would have been a country boy. And what does it sound like Jacob would have been? Kind of a city boy, or not a city. He's not in a city. He's in a tent, but more of an indoorsy type of guy. And so you would think Esau would have been more sunburned because he's out there hunting all day. And Jacob would have been probably pretty pasty and white from staying indoors all the time. And it says, and the boys grew, and Esau was a cunning hunter, a man of the field, and Jacob was a plain man dwelling in tents. Now verse 28, and Isaac loved Esau because he did eat of his venison, but Rebekah loved Jacob. Oh no. So now we're playing favorites. She's like, he's my favorite. And he's like, oh, he's my favorite. Now why is he your favorite? Because he's always bringing him venison to eat. So what's the Bible say? Your God is your belly or something like that. So he loved him because he was an outdoors guy. And she loved him because he was more of an indoor guy. So he was a little bit softer than him, okay? And as we look at this, it sounds like Esau was a pretty cool dude. He's out there all day with a bow, probably hunting and having fun. Sounds like he's having a good time in life. But he's having too good a time, and he just doesn't care about his family, and he doesn't care about the promises of God. It sounds like he's not a guy who cares about spiritual things. Because we continue. Verse 29. And Jacob sawed pottage, and Esau came from the field, and he was faint. So what is pottage? It's like beans. It's like lentils. It's like, it's like a bean soup, if you will. Have you ever had those little green lentils? How good those are? So, and Jacob sawed pottage, and Esau came from the field, and he was faint. And Esau said to Jacob, feed me, I pray thee, with that same red pottage, for I'm faint. So maybe it was little red beans. Therefore was his name called Edom. Now, Edom means red-brown. And so we have a name for Esau, and Esau gets a name just like Jacob gets a name. His name is Edom. Now, what did he do with those beans when he got them? He had to eat them. No, sorry, bad joke, bad joke. Ah, dad joke, dad joke. Okay, so he gets a name change. Now, Edom means red-brown. And remember, he came out all red and furry. So he was a redhead. Now, where is that nowadays in the Arab world? You don't see that a lot. That's kind of weird. But his name is Edom, and we know there's a place called Edom in the Bible. And where Edom is today is where Petra is, where that city is. And the Edomites, and they were not nice people. They would go out and attack people and kill them and take their stuff. Herod the Great came from Edom. So did you know Herod came from probably Esau and a mixture of Esau and Ishmael? That's kind of fascinating to think about. So he was an Edomite. So verse 30, and Esau said to Jacob, feed me, I pray thee, with that same red pottage, for I am faint. Therefore was his name called Edom. Now, you think his brother would be like, sure, have some beans. But his brother was always scheming, wasn't he? His brother was always thinking. Now, his brother was a cook. So his brother was a guy that liked to cook a lot. I guess he was more agricultural, while his brother Edom or Esau was more, I want to eat some meat. And so what does he say? Verse 31. And Jacob said, sell me this day thy birthright. And Esau said, behold, I am at the point to die, and what profit shall this birthright do to me? And Jacob said, swear to me this day. And he sware unto him, and he sold his birthright unto Jacob. And Jacob gave Esau bread and pottage of lentils, and he did eat and drink, and rose, does it say rose? Yeah, rose up and went his way. Thus Esau despised his birthright. Now Esau is a type of a carnal person that sells the spiritual for the carnal immediate. He just cared about immediate things. He didn't care about long term. He didn't care about spiritual things. Now this is kind of sad. What did the birthright entail? It meant you got a double portion of everything. We see that later in the Bible. We haven't got to that yet. It meant that you got the Abrahamic blessing of the seed and the land, and that you got to be in the lineage of the Christ, a part of the prophecy. And he didn't care about any of that. Now, what was the birthright? Well, it was probably like a seal or something that he carried around his neck that had something to do with the symbol of Isaac, whatever he would have been. And he carried that, and that showed that he was the firstborn of Isaac. And he probably took that off and said, I don't care here. And now Isaac's wearing it. And remember the prophecy, the elder shall serve the younger. It ended up being that way. So how did God know that? Well, he just knew who they were and what they were going to do before they did it. So we see this taking place. Jacob tells him to sell his birthright. Esau doesn't care about his birthright, doesn't care about his family. He says, who cares? What profit will I be being the firstborn? Except the fact that you get everything and he gets nothing, is what it looks like. So he didn't care about his lineages, his inheritance, and most importantly, he didn't care about God's prophecy. So let's go to Romans chapter 9 and see what God thought about this, because God in heaven is watching this, and God got furious when he saw what happened. It says that God was pretty much really angry. Romans chapter 9, verse 7 through 13. Romans chapter 9, verse 7, neither because they are the seed of Abraham are they all children, but in Isaac shall thy seed be called. That is, they which are the children of the flesh, these are not the children of God, but the children of the promise are counted for the seed. And it says, for this is the word of promise, at that time will I come, and Sarah shall have a son. And not only this, but when Rebekah also had conceived by one, even by our father Isaac, for the children being not yet born, neither having done any good or evil, that the purpose of God according to election might stand, not of works, but of him that calleth. Isn't that funny? That what does the name Esau mean? It means work, doer, one that works. It was said unto her, the elder shall serve the younger. As it is written, Jacob have I loved, but Esau have I what? Hated. So God was very angry. Now, where was that written? Where does it say, as it is written? Well, that is in Malachi chapter 1. So we have to go all the way to Malachi chapter 1. And God waits a long time to tell us that he did not appreciate, he did not like Esau saying, it's not important to me that I'm a part of the lineage of Christ. Because that's what it all boils down to. Esau's like, I don't care who my children are or where they come from. I don't care. So Malachi chapter 1, verse 1 through 3. The burden of the word of the Lord to Israel by Malachi. I have loved you, saith the Lord, yet you say, wherein hast thou loved us? Was not Esau Jacob's brother, saith the Lord? Yet I loved Jacob, and I hated Esau, and laid his mountains and his heritage waste for the dragons of wilderness. Whereas Edom saith, and Edom is Esau. And so it goes on there. So God hated what Esau did, and it even sounds like he judged the children of Esau for that sin of Esau. Now, why would he do that? Well, there's a lot of reasons, but eventually Esau marries into this crowd over here, and this crowd attacks Israel. So they're always fighting through the whole Old Testament. And so now they're against them. And so maybe that's part of the reason why God judged them. But isn't that something for God? The only guy in the Bible that God said he hated was Esau? That's sad. That's really sad. So let's finish up with chapter 26. We could go through this pretty quickly and get done here with chapter 26. And there was a famine in the land beside the first famine that was in the days of Abraham. And Isaac went to Abimelech, king of the Philistines, unto Gerar. Now this sounds just like what we've already seen before with Abraham. Remember when there was a famine and Abraham went over there and he dealt with Abimelech? Well, Isaac does the same thing. He goes, well, I better go someplace where there's water, because where he was, right now, if you go over there today, it's very dry. It's very hot. It feels like going to Arizona. It's so hot over there. So he's got all these cattle, but he wants to feed them. So you need seed, you need other things, you need grass. So you got to have a field. And now it's a drought. So he says, I'm going to go down here to where my father Abraham went and go see if somehow, if I go down there, I can get through this drought, plant some seeds, and make it. Well, as is the father, so is the son. He's going to do the same thing his daddy did, only for him, it's a lie. Because what does he do? He says, oh, that's my sister, when he talks about Rebekah. But she's not. She's his second cousin. So Abraham told a half-truth, but it was kind of true because she was his sister. This guy is repeating what his dad did, but for him it's a sin. Isn't that something? So even these great heroes of the faith that we remember in the Old Testament, they fall into sin, don't they? And it's a lack of faith is what it is. So it says here, and there was a famine in the land beside the first famine that was in the days of Abraham. And Isaac went to Abimelech, king of the Philistines, into Gerar. And the Lord appeared unto him and said, go not down into Egypt, dwell on the land which I shall tell thee of. All right, well that sounds like God saying that to Abraham. Hey, you go to a land that I'll tell you to go to. But don't go to Egypt. All right, all throughout the Old Testament, God tells the Jews, never go to Egypt. There's something that God does not like about Egypt and doesn't want them to go there. They had to go there for a time so that they could fulfill that prophecy we already read of 400 years being in Egypt, and then to come out of Egypt in the Exodus and all that good stuff. But don't go to Egypt. Was it the false gods in Egypt? Probably. There was a lot of false gods in Egypt. So never look for something from Egypt that we need as Christians. You've got two lines of Bible text, the ones that come from Jerusalem and Antioch, where the Bible says Christianity started. And then you have some text down here in Egypt, Alexandrian text. Where do we get our Bible from? Do we go to Egypt for our Bible? No. All new versions of the Bible are Egyptian text Bibles. That's where the Gnostics were. We do not need Egyptian Bibles. We need our true Bible. And the King James Bible comes from the right source. All other Bibles come from Egypt. That's awful. Vaticanus, Sinaiticus. So verse 2, and the Lord appeared unto him and said, go not down into Egypt, dwell in the land which I shall tell thee of. Sojourn in this land, and I will be with thee, and I will bless thee. For unto thee and unto thy seed I will give all these countries, and I will perform the oath which I swear unto Abraham thy father. And I'll make thy seed to multiply as the stars of heaven, and I will give unto thy seed all these countries, and on thy seed shall all the nations of the earth be blessed. So here is the Abrahamic covenant given to him. So Abraham, all the promises to him go to Isaac. And we see now they don't go to Esau because Esau sold his birthright. Now they go to Jacob. So you cannot claim, if you're an Arab, that you're the promised seed of Abraham and that land belongs to you. It doesn't. You get your own land over on the east, but this over here is supposed to all belong to the descendants of Jacob and the 12 tribes of Israel. So there's a lot going on here. Gerar, the land of Gerar, is south of Gaza. So it's not quite going into Egypt. It's still south of Gaza. Well, you know all about Gaza, haven't you? Because we've heard all the things that are taking place in Gaza today. So isn't that funny that you go over there today, all the people that are descendants of this guy are fighting all the people that are descendants of this guy. Because today they're in the land and they're fighting over Gaza. It's like the Bible is a circle and we're seeing the same thing happening. It's just the only difference is a couple thousand years and a different generation. But it's the same peoples. That's crazy. That's amazing. But it's still going on. How can you say the Bible's not true? We're seeing it. It's like going over and it's same people, same problems, same thing over and over. All right. So verse 5. Because that Abraham obeyed my voice and kept my charge, my commandments, my statutes, and my laws. And Isaac dwelt in Gerar, and the men of the place asked him of his wife. And he said, oh no, she is my sister. For he feared to say, she is my wife, lest, said he, the men of the place should kill me for Rebekah, because she was fair to look upon. So the son picks up the bad habit from the father. Abraham said this, he was only half lying, because she really was his sister, but she was his wife too. Now he's literally lying, telling an absolute lie. That's not good. So what happened to his daddy when he did that? Well, they took Sarah, remember? So why wasn't he thinking maybe they'll take her too? Why was he? Well, here's what happens. Verse 8, and it came to pass, when he had been there a long time, that Abimelech, king of the Philistines, looked out at a window and saw, and behold, Isaac was sporting with Rebekah, his wife. Now, what does it mean? Were they playing backgammon, or what is that called? Or badminton? Were they playing badminton? I don't think so. Sporting, to play, to frolic, to make merry, to trifle. They were engaging in maybe hugging each other, maybe he pinched her butt a little or something. Something that the guy goes, that's not his sister. Or whatever it was, he could tell. Those two are they're together. And so he was a little unhappy. Abimelech realized that they weren't brother and sister. Now, verse 9 through 11, Abimelech is very much against adultery. Now, I guess he's not against going and stealing a woman and fornicating with her and putting her in his house, but he's against adultery. Now, why would he be against adultery? Some people say the Noahide laws, okay? I don't like to get into the Noahide laws, but supposedly there were 7 laws given by Noah, and one of them is adultery is just a huge sin. So maybe they have the Noahide laws. I don't know. I know we had the Hammurabi Code and all that kind of stuff. There was an unwritten rule back then that there were certain things you don't do and that it was sin. So, verse 9, and Abimelech called Isaac and said, behold, of a surety she is thy wife. And how saidst thou, she was my sister? And Isaac said unto him, because I said, lest I die for her. Well, you really love her, don't you? Whew, boy, didn't Abraham say the same thing? And Abimelech said, what is this that thou hast done unto us? One of the people might lightly have lain with thy wife, and thou shouldest have brought guiltiness upon us. And Abimelech charged all his people, saying, he that toucheth this man or his wife shall surely be put to death. So capital punishment for adultery before the law of Moses. And under the law of Moses, there was capital punishment for adultery. Okay? Verse 12, then Isaac sowed in that land and received in the same year 100-fold, and the Lord blessed him. So did he go buy up fields, or did he rent fields? You know, it was common to rent a field from somebody to plant. Well, he planted, and he probably had all of his servants help him, and they got more increase than all of the Philistines. This leads to jealousy. And those people got so jealous, they're like, just get out of here. We don't like you because you're too rich. You're making too much money. You're making us look bad, making us look like we're lazy. You're doing more work than we are. So here's what happened. Verse 13, and the man waxed great and went forward and grew until he became very great. And he had possession of flocks and possession of herds and great store of servants, and the Philistines envied him. Jealousy. For all the wells which his father's servants had digged in the days of Abraham his father, the Philistines had stopped them and filled them with earth. Now, why would you do that? Somebody digs a well, that's a great thing. You keep that. But it almost sounds like they didn't like Abraham. They had spite for him. And Abimelech said unto Isaac, go from us, for thou art mightier than we. So he's like, look, we just don't like you. You make us feel bad. You outwork us. You make more than us. You make us feel lazy. Just get out of here. Well, that's nice, isn't it? We've never seen anything like that in history, have we? Where Jews move into a place and people get jealous and tell them to leave. Has that ever happened? Oh, yeah. If I said 1492, what would your first thought be? When I say 1492, everyone thinks Columbus sailed the ocean blue, 1492. Well, that's the year Columbus sailed. But 1492 is also the year that all Jews were cast out of Europe. All of Europe, and Spain. And they said, we want the Jews gone because they come in here, they make all this money, and they're richer than us. So you see this thing happening here, and he's the father of the Jews, and yet nowadays there's people out there that are very anti-Jewish, and they feel like Jewish work too hard and they make too much money and we don't like them. So you see how this thing is rooted in history? Now, I'm not anti-Jewish, but it's just what happened in Germany. You saw it. Hitler said the Jews were the entire problem. Why? Because they made too much money and were too rich. So how much of this is jealousy and how much of this is the devil hating the seed? That's the promised seed of the Lord that Jesus came from. We don't know. But why would they fill up the well when they could go use those wells and get their own water? I don't understand. Verse 16, and Abimelech said unto Isaac, go from us, for thou art much mightier than we. And Isaac departed thence and pitched his tent in the valley of Gerar and dwelt there. And Isaac digged again the wells of water which they had digged in the days of Abraham his father, for the Philistines had stopped them after the death of Abraham, and he called their names after the names by which his father had called them. Now he remembered them because he was with his dad, so he was probably there when they were dug. But doesn't that sound like spite? When Abraham died, they all filled him in. They were probably thinking, well, we're done with that guy. He'll never come back here. And then one day they wake up, oh no, his son is here. They didn't want to just get rid of the guy. They wanted to forget him entirely. It's like there's some hatred, anti-Semitism here, even way back then. And Isaac's servants digged in the valley and found there a well of springing water. So that sounds like they found a spring. And the herdmen of Gerar did strive with Isaac's herdmen, saying, the water is ours. And he called the name of the well Esau, because they strove with him. And they digged another well and strove for that also. And he called the name of it Sitnah. Now all he's doing is improving the environment. All he's doing is improving the infrastructure, making a well that anybody can use. So why are they trying to steal it? Why can't they all share? Can't we all just get along? I mean, isn't that, you know what happens today? The Jews come in and take over the land, and the people that live there, oh, we don't like you, you don't deserve to be here. Oh, and they're still fighting today, just like they were fighting back then. All out of spite. It should stop. They should all say, hey, we're all from the same, well, if they weren't, these guys, the Hittites, well, at least they were from Noah, so they're all from the same, way back then, father. Why do they have to fight all the time? It's so frustrating. Don't you wish they'd all just get along? So we see this well, and the name of the well is Esau, which means contention or strife. So they just called the well, oh, this well's contention. The other well they named Sitnah, which means enmity or opposition or hatred or accusation. So if you're in the desert, you need water. Well, you would think if somebody comes over, you'd say, hey, let's share. They go, no, I'm going to fill it with dirt rather than let you have it. Oh, well, I'll share it with you. No, you won't. It's mine. I'm taking it because I hate you. Do you see the contention? What a horrible thing. Why can't they just get along? Do you get the idea that he's not wanted there? That's the idea. They don't want him there. And to this day, there's people over there in Israel that don't want the Jews there. You think maybe they had thousands of years of their daddies saying we don't like them? It takes a long time to get that out of people. And it's a really sad thing to see, but that's still there today. And when I went to Israel, I saw that the Jews were the one that made the infrastructure great in that place. They turned the desert into fields with water and forest. And they're the ones that are actually making it better, digging the wells. Why would these people want to stop that when you're actually making it better and everyone could prosper from what's getting better? It just doesn't make sense. So we left off reading where? Verse 22. And he removed from thence and digged another well, and for that they strove not. And he called the name of it Rehoboth. And he said, for now the Lord hath made room for us, and we shall be fruitful in the land. And the word Rehoboth, guess what that means? Wide open spaces or room. So finally we found a place where we have a wide open space where they won't bother us. I guess now they have two wells. I guess they'll let us have one. Isn't that funny? And then it says, and he went up from thence to Beersheba. And what was Beersheba? Well, that was the well of the 7 lambs, the 7 oaths. And the Lord appeared unto him the same night and said, I am the God of Abraham thy father. Fear not, for I am with thee, and I will bless thee, and multiply thy seed for my servant Abraham's sake. Now verse 25, and he builded an altar there, and called upon the name of the Lord, and pitched his tent there, and there Isaac's servants digged a well. So remember, when you call upon the Lord, there must be a sacrifice. He built a rock altar, sacrificed, and then went to God in prayer. The only way to come to God is through a blood sacrifice. And Jesus is our blood sacrifice for our sins, and the Bible says we can come boldly to the throne of grace through the blood of Jesus Christ. So you don't come to God without the blood. And yet that's what so-called modern Christianity today is. It's a bloodless thing, and they try to go to God and just, oh, we're going to go talk to God in prayer. And you don't realize, no, you need to be saved and come through the blood. And there's a lot of people that think, well, I just get saved because I just say, oh, God, just save me. Well, when did you accept the sacrifice? Because that's the only way you can get to God, so he'll listen to you. So they dug a well there too. Then verse 26. Then Abimelech went to him from Gerar, and Ahuzath, one of his friends, and Phicol, the chief captain of his army. Now wait a minute. They said, you get out of here. And so they kept pushing them away. They finally found a place where to go. And then the guy that kicked them out comes to him and goes, hey, hey buddy, how you doing? It's hard to forget what you just did to me, and now you're showing up and we're all buddy-buddy. Do you ever have something like that happen in your life? When somebody hurts you so bad, and then one day they just show up, hey, how you doing? Long time no see. And they forgot everything they did to you. It's kind of hard to forget stuff like that, to be honest, but sometimes you just got to let it go. Maybe they don't, I don't know. But what's interesting is the name of the guy. The guy's name is Ahuzath. Ahuzath means possession, to seize, to grasp, to take hold of, or to be attached to. So he comes out and says, hey, long time no see there, Isaac. Hey, can we talk to you? I brought my friend here, Mr. To seize, that's his name. And I brought my other guy who's the chief captain of my army. What do you think Isaac's thinking? Are you going to come attack me later and try to take everything I have? Why would you do that? Why would you? It just doesn't make sense, does it? So you get the feeling that Isaac's just feeling like he's got to look over his shoulder everywhere he goes. You get the feeling that that's kind of what it's like in modern day Israel too. There are some places that you go that the tour guide says you better not go there by yourself, because there's people out there that don't want you there. And so it's quite interesting to see how this thing's all coming back like a circle. It's just like you can feel what he felt, 3,900 years ago. If you go back and if you go over there today, it's still the same thing. So amazing. The Bible is so true. So he shows up, and then verse 27, and Isaac said unto them, wherefore come ye to see me, seeing you hate me? Ye hate me, and have sent me away from you. What a great thing to say. What are you doing here? You hate me. Why are you come to see me? And I think he's justified in saying that, because, hey, I left like you said, and then you're following me and stealing my wells. And I named the well Hatred, because you hate me, I mean, can you show up? They show up, and what's the name of the well? It says the name of the well is They Hate Me. Oh, okay. So I can just see Isaac's very frustrated. He doesn't want to deal with this. He just wants these people to leave him alone, and here they show up. Why do you think they're showing up? Because he's very great. He's the richest guy in the neighborhood. So maybe they're going to ask him for some money or something? Do you know the history of Spain? I love the history of Spain. It's such a beautiful history. Before 1492, I think it was in the 1300s, there was a man named El Cid, C-I-D, El Cid, we'd say in English. And the Muslims had taken over the south of Spain, and those of Castile wanted to get them out, so they wanted to have a battle. And they eventually got rid of all the Muslims out of Spain, and Spain became its own country, and they forced them back across into Africa. But El Cid was the commander, and he went to the Jews and asked them for money to fight the Muslims. Did you know that? Even though the Spanish Catholics were enemies of the Jews. Well, the Muslims were enemies of the Jews. So the enemy of my friend is my friend, right? Type of thing. So they presented some money and said, if you'll get rid of the Muslims, we'll give you the money. But who did they know to go to get the money from? You see what I'm saying? And I don't remember the entire story. I think he had a big chest full of certain things, and he took it to them. And if I remember the story right, he told the Jews, don't open the chest until the war's over. this is what we have as collateral for your support. And there was nothing in the chest except like lead bars or something. It was all a trick. But the story, and since we're there, we'll finish with that story, is he fought the battle and he died in the battle. But the Muslims were so afraid of him, thinking he was a prophet or something, that they put him on a horse and they put him up there to where he wouldn't fall off, and they put a flag in his hand and they went like this to the horse, and he went straight out into battle. And they thought he was still alive. And then they all ran, and then they chased him, and they won the battle. So he was dead, and yet he won the battle. And there's a great movie by Hollywood with Charleston Heston called El Cid, and it's all about that. But I think of those things. Why is this guy buttering up to the guy that he told to leave? Because this is the richest guy in the whole area? Is it he's trying to just be friends because he might have to get a loan from him someday or something? I don't know. Let's read and continue what's going on here, because here's what he does. He said, "Wherefore come ye to me, seeing ye hate me, and have sent me away from you? And they said, We saw certainly that the Lord was with thee. And we said, Let there be now an oath betwixt us, even betwixt us and thee, and let us make a covenant with thee." Now where is he? He's in Beersheba, the exact place that his daddy made a covenant with them. Do you remember that last time? And he made a covenant with 7 lambs, and it's called the Well of the 7, or the Well of the Covenant. So we've got the father making a covenant, something to do with the number 7. Now we have the son making a covenant, and I don't think it says the number 7, but it's reminding us of that. So it's almost like we're seeing future history of an agreement of the Jews with an Antichrist figure for 7 years. Okay? I don't think I'm stretching it. I think we're seeing it. And this thing plays over and over again. So, and it says, let us make a covenant with thee. So maybe they're afraid that he's going to go get an army to come back to attack them or something. Maybe that's what they're trying to do. Verse 29, that thou wilt do us no hurt, as we have not touched thee, and as we have done unto thee nothing but good, and have sent thee away in peace, thou art now the blessed of the Lord. Doesn't that sound so pious? I don't think they believed in the same Lord as him. And he made them a feast, and they did eat and drink. And they rose up betimes in the morning and sware one to another, and Isaac sent them away, and they departed from him in peace. Interesting. And it came to pass the same day that Isaac's servants came and told him concerning the well which they had digged, and said unto him, We have found water. Now what if they had found water before that? They would have stole it too, maybe? I don't know. It's just interesting that afterwards they figured. And he called it Sheba. Therefore the name of the city is Beersheba unto this day. And Esau was 40 years old when he took to wife Judith. Okay, so now we go back to Esau. So this is all about Isaac, and we're not yet to Jacob yet. We talked about him, but now let's finish this chapter up with Esau. And next week we'll see a little bit more about Esau and Jacob. But this chapter finishes up. And it says, and Esau, verse 34, was 40 years old when he took to wife Judith, the daughter of Berai, the Hittite, and Bashemath, the daughter of Elon, the Hittite. Now, isn't that funny? There's a guy in the world today with the name Elon Musk. Weird. He's in the Bible. Which were a grief of mind unto Isaac and to Rebekah. So he gets him 2 wives. He marries a woman named Judith, which means praised or let him be praised. She was a Hittite. Hittites are later the enemies of Israel, and they all have false gods. Beri means a fountain or a well. And Elon means an oak tree or a mighty one or a mighty oak. And what's interesting is if you go east to Jordan, there used to be tons of oaks over there. So it's almost like we know where he got her from. It's kind of neat to think about that over in what was later called the land of Edom. So it's the land of Esau, Edom. So he took him 2 wives, and it grieved Isaac and Rebekah because they wanted him to marry somebody from their people, which is what Abraham said, you go over there and get you a wife, and he got her a cousin. So no doubt they would have probably sent them over there to get a wife instead of over here to get a wife from this crowd, which is later Edom, and Edom were the people in the desert that were like pirates. You couldn't cross the desert without getting raped and killed and murdered by the Edomites. And finally, the Edomites got so tired of killing everybody, they just said, all right, if you're coming through here, you have to pay a tax. And so everybody who had to go through Edom had to pay a tax to come through to them. And they became the mafia of their day. That's why Herod was so rich, because Herod was an Edomite. And he got all that money from everybody that crossed the desert having to pay a tax to the mafia, the Edom mafia. So for some reason, Isaac and Rebekah were very, very angry that he married someone from a different group than them. And so what do you say? Were they racist? Or was it because maybe they had a different God and they said, we don't want you to have their God. We want you to be someone that's like us. But either way, they weren't happy. Now, he sold his birthright. So my question is, did Esau sell out his God too? His family is in chapter 28, verse 6 through 9. We'll read that real quick. And look what it says about the family of Esau. Genesis 28, 6 through 9. When Esau saw that Isaac had blessed Jacob and sent him away to Padan Aram to take him a wife from thence, and that as he blessed him, he gave him a charge, saying, Thou shalt not take a wife of the daughters of Canaan, and that Jacob obeyed his father and his mother and was gone to Padan Aram, and Esau, seeing that the daughters of Canaan pleased not Isaac his father, then went Esau into Ishmael, and took unto the wives which he had Mahalath, the daughter of Ishmael, Abraham's son, the sister of Nahabat, to be his wife. So he literally goes and marries one of Ishmael's daughters. Or what was it be? Yeah, that's pretty gross. I mean, wouldn't that be like his aunt or something? All I know is this guy Esau is very spiteful and wants to hurt his family. So what is it that's so attractive? I think they had false gods. And I think he didn't want the God of his fathers because he was so rebellious. He was willing to say, oh, you don't want me over there with that? Oh, I'm going to. It's just like a teenager, right? You don't want me to do that? Well, I'm going to go do it. No, do what I say and you'll be happier. No, I'm going to do what I want to do. So Esau is not a good guy. He marries out of spite to make his parents angry. And what does he end up? When you look at what Esau becomes, Esau is Edom. The Edomites were the worst. And the Edomites were the pirates of the desert that would go and kill people. And they were just rebellious people. So, well, the Somalis were way farther down south, and that's probably a different group. But yeah, that's close to where those people were. But the Edomites were the bad people in the Bible that Israel had to fight. And so the Hittites, a lot of them they had to fight. But we all know through history that they had the false gods. So this is more of just a story of this tribe didn't like this tribe. It's a story of there's a God who's trying to preserve himself a people, and the devil has a people over here that he's trying to get rid of these people of God. Do you see how that makes sense? Well, you just called all the Arabs of Satan. No, I didn't. I'm just saying that the devil can trick people into fulfilling the lust of the flesh rather than doing right. And throughout history, well, you know, if you study the Crusades, in Islam started in the 800s, and what did the Islamist people do? If you were found in the desert, they'd make you a slave or a servant. And they'd just kidnap you because Allah willed it, they'd say. Well, that's not this God. Our God is a God of liberty and freedom and grace and love. And we have all our songs in the hymn book about love. There's no hymn book for a Muslim of how Allah is love because they don't look at him as a God of love. So it's a different world, and that's about it. So that's about all I got to get to. I don't want to go too long today, but I guess we did. We had to get through those two. Any questions or comments on what we studied today? Isn't history fascinating? Amen?
I just weirdly seen a TikTok last night. TikTok, right? Where this guy was explaining that the Antichrist would come up out of the lineage of Esau. And I was like, heard that before, that's interesting. And then we talk about Esau today.
So she said she saw a TikTok where someone was saying he thought that the Antichrist would come from the lineage of Esau. Well, that is interesting because Esau married into Ishmael. And so it could be that the Antichrist comes from Ishmael too. And now that they're all intermingled, and then the Syrians, the Bible talks about the Antichrist being probably a Syrian. Well, they're all intermixed now. So Antichrist can't come from the Jewish line, can it? I mean, unless that guy is part Jewish too. And maybe that's part of it. But
Esau is Jewish.
well, Esau is not Jewish. When we talk about Jewish, that's a good question. The word Jew, a lot of people nowadays think that the word Jew comes from Judah, and that's not true. Jew is just a word that means anybody of the 12 tribes. Because Paul says he was a Jew. And he says that he was from the tribe of, was it Benjamin? I think he's from the tribe of, am I reading that? If I remember right, he wasn't from the tribe of Judah, so how did he call himself a Jew? So a Jew is any one of those 12 tribes. It's also called a Hebrew. So the Jews are from Jacob and the 12 tribes. You can't say Esau was a Jew because he wasn't. You almost can't say that Abraham was a Jew because nobody used the word Jew for Abraham or for Isaac. But for Jacob, Jacob's name was changed to Israel, and Jew is interchangeable for the word Israel. But he came from, was it his great-grandfather or something, was Eber? Remember that? And Eber is where the word Hebrew comes from. So when we talk about the Hebrews, when we talk about Israel, when we talk about Jews, it has to be from those 12 tribes. So Esau would not be a Jew. We wouldn't call him a Jew. He's from Abraham, and he's from Isaac, but he's not from the promise of Jacob, which is where the promise of God continued from Jacob to the 12 tribes. Right?
Makes sense.
That makes sense. Emma had a question?
It's a stretch, but to me it kind of sounded like Esau and Jacob were another Cain and Abel, the way he brought Abraham Venice to his father.
Wow, that's really good. I meant to say that too, so I'm glad you brought that. It almost sounds like they're another Cain and Abel. Only this time, Abel didn't get killed. But what did Cain do? He offered up to his father, hey, look at what I did. Look at what I did. And it wasn't a lamb that he was after, it was a deer. And Jacob ends up being the guy that has a bunch of lambs, a bunch of deer. So it's almost like another Cain and Abel. And from Cain, there was a mark on Cain. So spiritually, you could say that Esau is a type of Cain, right? That makes a lot of sense. I like that. Yes, sir. Do you have a question?
Is there anything about the Elon guy there?
Is there anything about the Elon guy? No. It's just, it's weird that the name Elon is in the Bible, right?
Well, yeah, I wonder where he came from.
The guy Elon Musk.
Or,
Elon Musk came from South Africa, and so he's from that area. And some people, you hear all these theories of people think, I think the Antichrist is King Charles. I think, yeah, people love it. Some people think the Antichrist is Trump. Some people think the Antichrist is Obama. I've heard some people say, I think Elon Musk is the Antichrist. But it's a weird name, Elon. And if you look into his parents and where he came from, there was a lot of space age stuff that made it get that name. But he's literally from South Africa, so yeah, I don't know.
There's a lot of crazy things that people just like eat
Yeah,
up.
they claim he's autistic too, right?
Something,
Yeah.
He's definitely different.
But he's definitely building a system that I think will bring in the Antichrist with all the brain chips and things like that. It makes you wonder. And who has the most money in the world today? Well, the Jewish people are very rich, and the Arabs have all the oil. So there's a lot of rich. So you go to Abu Dhabi or someplace like that, they've got the biggest, most expensive, beautiful things. So it's fascinating that we still see these people are around in the world today. So the Bible's true. Amen. Anybody else? Well, thank you for being with us today, and we'll close in a word of prayer. Lord, thank you that the Bible's true. Thank you, Lord, that we can go through it and see what it says and study it and learn from it. And Lord, what an amazing book. And we just pray now you take us home safely, get us back next week so we can learn more. There's so much in this book. And Lord, I just feel like we're just touching the surface. We're not even close to all the things that are in there that we could be seeing. But we're seeing so much, and we appreciate the study. In Jesus' name, amen.